Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
What's up, folks? It's going on? Lord have mercy. Start over. Rewind. What's going on, folks? It's Anthony Armstrong here on Believe in Commanders with my man, Brian Murphy, all the way from ATL. What's going on, my man? How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I love that we can do this from two different states. We're in Texas and Georgia talking about a team in Washington, D.C. That's awesome. I love it. I'm fired up.
That's the power of the internet, man. That's
right.
The power of the internet. We're so
Don't ask me how it works, but it just does.
Yes, that is. Yes. That's a whole other podcast. I'm sure there's another one out there.
Yeah.
Believe in
tech.
Believe in tech. Believe in conspiracies. Believe in. Ooh, I bet that'd be a good. Cam Rodgers would be good on that.
Yeah,
I bet a few other guys would be good. Anyways, we got a good show coming up for y'all. Appreciate y'all listening. If you're on TuneIn, appreciate you listening over there at TuneIn Radio. We have that network. But this show, as always, is brought to you by Bet Online.
That's right. We don't need to tell you guys, but football season is back and fully in action. We are about to start week 7, which is crazy. We're getting close to the halfway mark, which is insane to say, but it's back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, game trends, all of that. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Make sure you're checking them out all week long, not just before the games, but during the games as well. It's always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB playoffs, MMA, tennis, boxing, NBA is back, even golf. So head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's 100%. A welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your rewards. And remember, Bet Online, where the game starts.
That 100% bonus is great, y'all.
Yeah.
When I got the bonus, it was only 50%.
Yeah. So they upped it. They want you guys to get the full 100% match there. So there it is, scrolling on the bottom of the screen. Just type in BLEAV and you will receive your reward. So Bet Online, where the game starts, where our game starts. We'll get to it in just a sec with the Packers, but a lot of news going on around the Commanders this past week. Since last Thursday when this team played, it will have been a full 10 days since this team last played a game, and things are going to look a little bit different as some roster news. If you haven't heard, Carson Wentz is expected to be out about a month, maybe 6 weeks with the finger injury, and we are back to Taylor Heinicke time. What were your thoughts when you first saw that come down? We obviously knew he was seeing some specialists. We knew he was banged up, but when you saw that it was going to be, at least a month that he was coming back, Carson Wentz, that is, what were you thinking?
Damn. That was my first thing. I think I was putting the kid down for a nap, and I was like, damn. And the kid was like, what's going on? And I'm like, nah, you good. I was
just go to sleep.
Upset. Yeah, right. I was upset, for him. Especially, you know his history. People always bring up the fact that he's often injured, and yet again he has an injury. But I also went back. I was like, man, he played that game with a broken finger, with a fractured finger. Like that's tough. So I had to take my hat off to him for that. So it's like, once again, you kind of go back to as many times as people pile on and bash him. The guy played the rest of that game with a fractured finger.
Right.
And I know some people that'll call out for work on Monday if they have a hangover on Thursday. So
that's right.
Let's give this man a little bit of credit for being tough. It sucks that he's going to be out, but that's a part of the game.
Yeah, we saw him shaking his hand, and we knew it was not feeling okay. And so you never know how that's going to go after the game when it's had some time to sit and you're not actively using that hand. And now I think every broken something in the hand, at least recently, is going to be compared to Dak Prescott. I don't know how similar the injuries are, that kind of thing, but Dak is just now getting back after a month and a half. Yeah. So when they say potentially a month, I think you got to at least add on a week or two after that. So it could be a good, Thanksgiving or later that we potentially see Carson Wentz back out there, if at all. Yeah. So it is a bummer because, he fought hard. Through the block when he wasn't feeling well. He was also dealing with an ankle and something else. And So I think a bicep injury, but it just stinks to see him go get that win and then not be able to back it up or try to build a little bit of momentum in a winnable game against the Packers. So I was with you, very frustrated to hear that news. Just when I thought, the offense didn't look great on Thursday, we talked about that, but there's something to be said by getting a win and getting some momentum going, and now he won't be able to do that. So in steps a guy that we talked to over the summer, Taylor Heinicke, a guy who has been there before. He's been that pinch hitter before in a playoff game. Getting called off his sister's couch. You guys know the story at this time, so it's not going to be too big of a moment for him. And we'll see what Taylor Heinicke has as this team, despite being 2-4, is right there in the playoff chase. They're only a game back of the wild card, so these games are certainly still meaningful.
They definitely are. And I will say what you want. You should have a breath of fresh air and feel good, a sigh of relief, if you will, for having Taylor Heinicke actually being able to step in. I went and listened to that interview from this summer, and I asked him, hey, you've been in this offense. He's like, yeah, I've been around these guys for a long time. I know this stuff. So it's very calming to know that you're going to have a person step in who actually has more knowledge of the offense than the guy who's actually starting. So, last night I was trying to think of the way to say it. And it wasn't generally you would think when the backup goes in, there's going to be a lapse or step down in performance. And you could say whatever about, how the season is going, but you shouldn't see a guy walk in and act like he doesn't know what's going on.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? I think the offense should operate smoothly, and it might look a little bit better simply because he does know the offense and he can quickly get people aligned and situated and lined up. Now, does it take away some type of throws that Carson's able to make? Sure, absolutely. Maybe those don't happen, but maybe other guys start getting some action. And I started to think about the last time that Taylor went into Green Bay. He played well against those guys up there, right?
Yep.
Now
he had a decent day. Yeah,
he had a decent day, and you can definitely say he has more weapons now on offense going up against this team, and he's at home. So this might not be a bad thing.
I sent him a message. I was like, you owe Aaron a loss. Just go do it. You know what I mean? Like, so they could have had him last year. And so now Aaron's coming to our place. Packers are a little bit beat up. And like I said, I'm not worried. Yes, I agree with you that there might not be a couple of throws that Taylor can make that Carson could, but I'm not worried about the team as a whole because not just at quarterback, but Taylor Heinicke is probably the guy on this team that knows this offense better than anybody other than maybe Scott Turner himself, right? He did it in Carolina. We know the ties and the connection. So he certainly is going to step right in. It's not like having a guy like Garrett Gilbert who started a game for you last year, who just came in and is introducing himself to guys. This guy's been in the middle of everything. Every practice picture you see, Taylor Heinicke is right there. He's probably picking ideas off of Carson Wentz and kind of feeding him some ideas too. So I'm excited for Taylor Heinicke. I've obviously been a fan, a little bit biased, going to the same high school and all that. But yeah, I think that he's just going to step right in and he's going to do an admirable job. I know that he liked to find J.D. McKissick a lot last year, which we haven't seen a whole lot of J.D. McKissick. And you're right, the weapons should be better than what he had last year. He should have a full complement of running backs where it was really only Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick was the change of pace guy. Now you throw in Brian Robinson. So he's going to have a full tool belt, a full toolbox of guys to throw the ball around to, and I'm excited for that.
And the other thing to consider, because all the highlights that have been out there are the way that he's been able to escape the pocket and make something happen with his legs. Mm-hmm. Carson hasn't been able to do that so much. He's done it a few times, but Taylor's very elusive. He can get out of the pocket, and people. I saw a great tweet. Somebody's like, "Man, he's exciting. Sometimes it's good and bad, but he's exciting, and he'll bring something. He's going to bring a spark to the offense. I tell you, he's going to scramble out. He's going to make a big throw. It's going to be an eruption of cheers and energy in the stadium." So it's a good thing. I think it's not going to be a bad thing. And yes, it sucks that there's an injury. You never want that to happen. Yeah. But I think you're okay. I don't think it's a bad thing that you're going to Taylor Heinicke.
Yeah, and we already said I don't think the moment's too big, but it's nice, like you said, that they're at home, that that crowd can get behind this team, coming back off a tough win a week and a half ago, hopefully getting healthy. So I like their chances, and like you said, sometimes when you go to the backup quarterback, you're dreading it. You're kind of like, okay, how long till we get our starter back? But you feel like you're in good hands with Taylor Heineke, and I like what he can do, and I like his short yardage ability to get a couple yards when not a lot of quarterbacks can do that, like you said, scrambling the ball.
Yeah. Last point on that, and then we're going to get off of this, but I bet Scott Turner probably has a little bit of a comfort level with what Taylor Heineke likes as well. So, this is not – we're not jumping on Carson, but you got to think about it. You're going back to something that's a little bit more familiar for everybody.
Yeah.
Then it's good. It's going to be calming for everybody. Okay.
Sure.
So, you should still see a good performance.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of those weapons, it seems like the Commanders are getting relatively healthy. I think I saw today a couple of tweets, maybe from Pete Haley, that Jahan Dotson was out there. Charles Leno was in a non-contact jersey. I feel like we'll probably see Dotson back out there. He's missed the last 2 games with that hamstring, and hopefully he's had some time to let it just sit and heal up fully. So those weapons should be available. I think we'll see a heavy dose of Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. We saw what the Jets did to the Packers last week. They like to run the ball and run the ball and run the ball all over again. They did it to the tune of almost 200 yards. So it's nice that the team is getting healthier. I don't know that they're fully healthy, but they're getting healthier, and that should certainly help whoever's under center and whoever's out there hopefully make some plays.
Yeah, this little extra time off is huge. I mean, I think that's. Yes, it's a mini bye week, like we've all spoken about. But I mean, when you have some key people out and then they're going to be able to come back, it's a perfect timing for this to all kind of show up. So I'm happy for that. I'm very thankful for it.
Kind of injury related, kind of not. A guy that hasn't been out there is William Jackson III. I kind of think that eventually, and we're going to have Lake Lewis on later, so I want to kind of get his thoughts as a guy who's right there in the middle of all of it. But I kind of think William Jackson III might have played his last game as a Commander, as a football team member, as a whatever the team is called. I think he's played his last game in DC. I just think that it would be better for both sides to move on. And so that'll be interesting to see. They kind of are not really committing to it being an injury related thing, but I don't think he was out at practice today. So, as a player, how do you handle that? You're obviously unhappy. You haven't played that well. You see kind of the writing on the wall. Maybe the team does too. Does that cause a distraction? What is going on when there's obviously a big kind of elephant in the room that William Jackson III is probably not a part of future plans with this team?
I haven't been that person who's had his name thrown around in trade discussions. But on the other side, is business as usual. You have to just treat it as business as usual, because you've seen plenty of your friends and teammates been cut over training camp and at the end of training camp. So at this point, the young guys like Rashad Wildgoose, you're looking at this as an opportunity.
Yep.
Benjamin St. Juste, you're looking at this as an opportunity, regardless of, it may still be your boy, but hey, I get more burn, and I get to get out there and play. And, the goal is to win regardless of who's out there. It would have been great to have William Jackson out there if he was playing at a high level, but if both sides know, hey, this is probably not what we're going to do, then they're both going to come up to a mutual, ending, and it probably makes things be a little bit more smooth rather than having one guy be loud in the media about some stuff. And that's a bigger distraction.
And I don't think it's honestly don't think it's been a distraction. I think he talked to the media a little bit yesterday, and it doesn't seem like I'm sure he's frustrated, don't get me wrong, but it seems like both sides are handling it professionally, and hopefully that they work out a deal that's best for both sides. I mean, get you something that can help out later on in the future, a late round draft pick, and send William to a place that he can thrive and where he can play well, because we know he's got some skills. So I'm excited to see what they do with that, and I think it'll be best for both sides. So those are kind of the I'm just thinking.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying. I'm thinking. I mean, they're going to be scouring, rosters to see, like, is there a young player that we can bring in that'll bring some value, or is it draft picks, or So before week 8 hits, I mean, I would expect something exciting, some value to be added to the team, and we could use some help in a few different positions.
Yeah, all hands on deck. This team has shown. So that's on the field. Off the field, we've heard a little bit of owner news, owner meeting, a little bit of nonsense, hearing some stuff from Jim Irsay, who hated on our quarterback Carson Wentz, and now might be a driving force to potentially get Dan Snyder out of there. I definitely want to talk to Lake Lewis about that, who's going to join us here in a second. But I like to focus on the on-field stuff, but I definitely want to pick his brain a little bit on what's going on there. And then one other thing, the alumni weekend, 90th anniversary of the team. There'll be some alumni in the building. Not AAA, right? You're not able to make it up there.
No, I had some last minute situations kind of pop up. I had made some RSVPs. I'm gonna send a little email saying I'm not gonna make it, but I was really trying to get up there and be a part of that because when I played against Green Bay,
That's
we
right.
had a touchdown and we beat them babies. So I just wanted to be in the building for that, but I'll have to catch another one.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring in our guy, Lake Lewis, who is, I'm sure all of our listeners and fans across DC already follow him. He does great stuff. You've already talked to him once. I think you were flying solo AAA. So tell us about Lake Lewis and welcome your guy in.
What's up, Lake? Glad to have you here. I mean, he's one of the top people you can follow. Anything you're looking for, but really anything DMV sports. Lake Lewis Sports Journey. Was it NBC Washington too? Am I wrong? ABC. I'm sorry. I always get those messed up. I got that messed up when I was up there too, man. But
sportsjourney.com after practice podcast. Lake, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
I mean, you came in here right during the juicy drama part.
Yeah.
We're talking about the owner meeting.
Yeah, if you're talking this football team, that should be your whole show.
Well, we try to keep it light, but I mean, it's been a long bye week, essentially a bye week. So we had to touch on some other topics that came up, and we talked about Carson and whatnot. But we were about to speak about the owner meeting. What's the temperature of just kind of that whole situation up in the DC area?
Well, it's when you start hearing another owner, and it was just one. I mean, it was Jim Irsay for the Colts. When you hear one owner though say something about another owner, that's kind of the start of something. Whether people think it's only one owner and that's not enough because they need 23 other owners to be with Irsay. Listen, one owner coming out against a fellow owner that you just normally don't see that because it's such a tight knit. I don't want to say good old boy club, but it's a tight knit good old boy club. So for one to come out and say that says something. And then also recall going back to the game in Chicago, and Al Michaels made a comment on the air too, as far as Dan Snyder, and as far as saying that he had been a problem and the league may be looking to remove him. When you start hearing those things on more of a national scale, then that it's stuff that can actually, I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but it's definitely something that could get people's attention. And I think it's got Dan Snyder's attention for sure.
And do you think that is anything else to it since it was Jim Irsay? I mean, obviously he obviously just got done, bashing Carson Wentz. He trades Carson Wentz to Washington. Is him saying it is that anything added, or is that just him being himself?
Well, he's outspoken, as we know. He's very candid. He doesn't mind having a camera in his face. But for him to be the first to say it, that may be his thing. He may be the person to say, hey, I was the first person that stood up to him and said something. But when you're being told as an owner that some guy's trying to find dirt on you, allegedly, because obviously, me being a news anchor now, I have to always say allegedly. No. But that's serious accusations right there. And, that's legal stuff involved in that. So, just to be able to see it happening and unfolding, I think a lot of the Washington fan base, let's call it like it is, they want a new owner. They do. They flat out do. And I think it's apparent in the lack of sales, as far as the seats that are not being filled in the stadium. The opposing team basically are playing home games now. So those are things that clearly have gotten the attention of the other owners and the NFL as a whole. And is it something that can be repaired and get back to where it used to be? I mean, Anthony, when you played, the building was selling out. And now, I don't know if you've been up here in a while, but let me just tell you, it's pretty disappointing to see what you see on Sundays.
Yeah, I've seen pictures that people post from the stands, or like videos from the stands, and I'm like, man, that's a whole lot of empty spots and tarped up spots, and it's just like it gets upsetting. I know that's frustrating as a player to see.
It's got to be. I mean, I can tell you right now, there's more people in University of Maryland Stadium for Maryland football games, and I'm not going to rip Maryland because I'm a Penn Stater, but we own Maryland. But the whole point is that there are more people at in their stadium than there is at FedEx Field, and that's bad. You can't have that.
That's wild. Lake Lewis joining us here. So if you had to guess, when would something be resolved, or I don't even know if the right word is resolved with Dan Snyder, what kind of timeline do you foresee, or is it just so unpredictable that there isn't one?
I don't think there is one, but I think in a perfect world, this would be something that you'd want to handle. If there's an owner that wants him out, they're going to have to step up and say something, because you'd want that to happen by the winter. I mean, you'd want that to happen before you usher into a new season. And the reason for that is a lot of reasons. One, this is a team that's going to be looking for a stadium real soon. And I just know from what I've been told by a lot of people in the know on this, DC and other places, they don't want to do business with them. So when you have situations like that, it's kind of your feet are stuck in the mud, so to speak. So it's just hard to say, but I think for one owner to step up and say something, that may be the snowball effect that gets things rolling. And, if we see some other owners start to come out with this, and then definitely things will start to pick up.
Well, you mentioned the stadium, and then we see, I'm sure it's been in the works, but Nashville, it just seemed like it was like that they've already agreed to a new stadium. That's got to be like an eye opener for everybody, that Washington has openly been looking for a new stadium for years now, and then another team is just getting it done just like that.
Yeah, and then even in Chicago, we were there last week, and Chicago, they have land outside of Chicago. I mean, it's way outside of Chicago, but still, there's land there for them to build another stadium, and they just did. I feel like they just refurbished Soldier Field.
They did.
Last 10 years, right? So
yeah.
You fix up and upgrade, an iconic stadium, and now you have an opportunity to build another stadium. Those are the things that go to show you that cities are working with certain ownership groups and certain, league-wide sources. And then, of course, here it's totally different. I keep telling people right now, they're going to have to upgrade FedEx Field. That's the only place I see, if he's the owner, something getting done.
Yeah, if he's not getting any help from any city or government officials,
then
taxpayer
money will go into a stadium.
And then and if they're not selling out the stadium, then it's going to make it tough to do some upgrades. So I put it in turf before when I was in college, but yeah, I'm not doing that again. So I'm okay. I'm okay on that.
Well, I think people sometimes have to remember too that the Ravens, have M&T Bank Stadium, which is in Baltimore, and so that's already a source of state taxes and things like income, stuff like that that's already going towards a Maryland team. And then, of course, you have University of Maryland, you have the Naval Academy, you have Towson. So you have these other schools that have their own stadiums. There's a lot of money being pushed into Maryland as far as ballparks. So for Washington, to me, the only move that would make sense, in my opinion, a lot of people don't like hearing it, would be for them to move to Virginia, because Anthony, this, we lived in Ashburn. That's where the headquarters are. So it would make sense. But the only place that seemingly that has the available land is down in Manassas, Woodbridge, and nobody's dropping down 95.
That's a long way.
No, that's not happening.
So speaking of the field, let's get to on the field. We know Carson Wentz is banged up. We saw that he was shaking his hand out. He was already dealing with a couple of ailments. First off, what were your thoughts when you saw that it was going to be a month to a month and a half that we see Carson Wentz back out there, and where does this team go from here?
Honestly, guys, and I hate to say this, but it's just so Washington. It's just Washington can't have nice, shiny toys. They just,
You first game of the season, the kid Fadarian Mathis tears his knee up, and he was starting to play well late in the preseason. You see things like that. Jahan Dotson's been out the last several games, with the hamstring injury. It just seems like whenever this franchise has something that they can build around, we know about Brian Robinson and that tragic incident. Thank God he's back out on the field, but that derailed his progress for a couple of weeks. So now you see Carson Wentz, your prized possession at quarterback, breaks his finger, and he's out indefinitely. It could be 4 to 6 weeks. But then there's grumblings too, and you start to wonder, did he throw his last pass on Washington? Because we have to be realistic here. He's getting $22 million, and, Ron Rivera's tried to stick by him, and, some people thought he was throwing him under the bus. I didn't think that at all. I thought that his words, and I've been very critical of Ron Rivera on top of that, but I thought his words were kind of taken out of context when what he was saying was they didn't have their quarterback yet. This is my problem with that, guys, not to stray from the subject, but if you felt like you didn't have your quarterback, well, the guy you're starting this Sunday, you kind of threw him under the bus, didn't you? So that's all another story. But for Carson Wentz, listen, I thought he was playing okay. He didn't play great football, but he wasn't playing terrible football either. And he was under duress. I mean, every time he dropped back, there were 2-3 guys coming at him because of a poor offensive line. So I think he's going to get a pass. If Ron Rivera is back here next year, which I think he will be, I think Carson Wentz will be back here too. But if Taylor Heineke can, catch lightning in a bottle, or perhaps he doesn't, and Sam Howell comes in and plays well, maybe they go a different direction and save some money for their cap.
All right. That kind of takes me to what I wanted to ask kind of everybody. What's the one move, I would say, on the field or off the field, that you would think needs to be, that would help point the team in the right direction? I was going to say remove the ownership change, because we don't got that out.
Obvious, yeah.
My bank account does not put me in that club. You feel what I'm saying? So I can't. I can have my opinion, but it's just like, somebody else is gonna have to act on it because I can't do it. But what's the one thing that you would change? What would it be?
Guys, it's just hard to say this because I don't like messing with people's livelihood. I just don't. But I don't think they have the right coaching staff in place. I just don't. And I say that because Ron Rivera's had some success, but he hasn't had a lot of success. He did take a team to a Super Bowl. They were on the shoulders of a superhuman player that year in Cam Newton. They were 15-1. Cam Newton won the MVP. But Ron Rivera's only has 3 winning seasons in 12 years as a head coach. Mm-hmm. And 2 of those winning seasons, there were only nine wins, so I think one was 10. So it wasn't like, he was just burning it up in Carolina. There were a lot of rebuilds, a lot of things that didn't work down there, and Washington inherited that. They brought that with him. So with all that being said, when you look around the league and you see Kevin O'Connell, what he's doing in Minnesota, and you see obviously Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan, and Sean McVay has a Super Bowl under his belt, Zach Taylor, for God's sake. I mean, all these guys were under the tree of, Shanahan and Gruden at some point. They coached you, Anthony. Yeah. So you think about the fact that you didn't keep any one of these guys in the building, and they're young, they're innovative. The game seems to fit what they're trying to do now. And I look at Ron Rivera and his coaching staff, and it's an older, experienced staff, but the experience that they had, the game's changed, and I don't see them making adjustments to fit what's going on. Yeah. You look at the other teams around the league on offense, and, they can get 10, 15 yards. They could be in a 3rd and 15 situation, and they have a play to get them 16 yards. Yeah. And you look at Washington offensively, and it's a struggle to get 1 yard. and it seems like it's every week, every play. That comes back to coaching to me. It's not just on the players.
Yeah. What about you, Brian? You had some on that?
Yeah, I think, if it is coaching, I think you definitely got to go for the next young offensive mind. I think that's the way this league is going. And I think I've seen people say, well, why don't you get a defensive minded head coach? Well, he's going to bring in a good offensive mind that's then going to get poached. And it's like a cycle that never ends again. So I'm definitely looking for the next offensive mind. But I think for the first time in a long time, if we're talking about on the field, they need to address the linebacker position. I think that they have a bunch of solid role players. I think Cole Holcomb and Jamin Davis are solid they're solid. Not a knock on them at all. I think they're solid, but they need a game changer that can go out there and play all three downs, that can cover guys, that can tackle guys, that can get after the quarterback. I think that having that in the center of your defense is huge, and something that it's kind of frustrating that two former linebackers are totally missing in their scheme. Yeah. So that's the thing I'm looking for.
That's a great point, man. The fact that you have two former linebackers and the weakest part of your team is linebacker. Mm-hmm. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me at all. And I agree. I think Jamin Davis is getting unfairly judged in his second year, but you can clearly see he's not a game changer. He's a good football player, but he's not a Micah Parsons. He's not one of those type of players that just demands, accountability on the field for offenses to know exactly where they are. And Washington has a nice front four. They're playing well, and Chase Young should be back and add to that. But I agree with you. I think that they need a game changer in the middle of the field, and it'll make everything in front of him and behind him that much better.
Yeah, I actually wrote down exactly what you said, Lake. I'm like, the coaching staff is just too old. The game has changed. The game's changed twice since those guys have played. For what it is what it is. The game's changed twice. I mean, you've seen the success the D-Lions had with Ryan Kerrigan being there. So there's something about having a younger voice. I think Ron Rivera is a great leader of men. I think he was probably the right person to, steer the ship through the murky waters that have been through the past, 2-3 years. And we mentioned on the show, probably need to keep him in the organization, but in a higher up position, to make sure he keeps everything on the up and up. But you need a younger mind. You need to have somebody else that's able to, innovate and get the ball to people creatively. You got a lot of weapons. And at some point, you can't keep circling players on the field. It's got to be, something's got to change. And also you got to have some patience, because you mentioned the young mind getting poached. But if you do a good job developing, then that young mind that gets poached, there's a quarterback's coach that's behind him, or a receivers coach that knows everything. And I feel like a lot of times, especially with this organization, there's not much patience. There's only a few lead teams in this league that have patience to try to develop people, and Washington hasn't been one. But if they have some patience and can get a younger mind on offense, that's going to help. And fix that O-line too. Hell, fix him.
Yeah, I mean, I said this, when Kevin O'Connell was here, he was, he was the quarterback's coach, but then he started calling plays as a coordinator for Bill Callahan when Callahan was, when Jay Gruden was fired and Callahan, became the interim head coach. I go back to this, and rest in peace to him, but Dwayne Haskins was actually playing well under Kevin O'Connell. You had guys like Steven Sims that was playing well. Kelvin Harmon was playing well before he got hurt. And none of these guys are on the roster. I mean, just there's nothing to show for any of that. Kevin O'Connell's gone, and you look at Minnesota, 5-1 right now. Ron Rivera, when he came in here, I said the first thing he should do is make Kevin O'Connell his full-time offensive coordinator. Well, obviously he had a different plan. He brought in Scott Turner. That's not working. I mean, and I think anyone can see that, I don't want to say Scott Turner's in over his head, but you have more offensive weapons now. You have 3 really good receivers and a fourth that's showed that he can do something in De'Ami Brown. And Cam Sims, you don't take anything away from him either. Yeah. But when I watch these receivers, and I'm watching Terry McLaurin sometimes only get 3 targets a game, that's inexcusable. When I'm seeing all the passes be thrown to the sidelines as opposed to down the field. I mean, Anthony, you were a 4-3 guy. You said 4-2, but but the point is, with your speed, you wanted to be able to run down the field. And they've had guys here like yourself, and Deshaun Jackson was here doing the same things. Why are they not doing that with these guys? And then you have Carson Wentz, who has a big arm, and he's proven that he can get it down the field. But you go out and you spend all this money on a quarterback and you don't get the right pieces in front of him to protect him. That's just bad decision-making at the top. You can't sugarcoat it. It's bad decision-making.
Yeah. It almost feels like they're never really looking at what's in the building. They're always having your ears to the streets to what else is out there. Because frankly, you can't tell me you got 5, 6, 7 current head coaches that are having success that have come through your building and you couldn't keep one. That's
he couldn't keep one. One.
That's That's trash. Sean McVay should have been your head coach a long time ago. He should have been the head coach whenever Gruden left.
Lack of vision. Yeah, it shows a lack of vision. And for me, I say flat out, and they get mad when I speak my truth about things. Ron Rivera, these things, I agree with you. He was the perfect hire to bring respectability and accountability to the organization. But it was a terrible hire as far as coaching. And, at the end of the day, do you want someone that's well-respected around the league that's going to lose? Or do you want a young gun that's brash and may rub people the wrong way, but you're going to win?
Yeah.
That's what I'm going for.
That's what we should be going for.
Right. So before we let you go, all this big picture stuff. Oh yeah, there's a game on Sunday that potentially could be winnable against a Green Bay team that certainly hasn't lived up to its potential. A couple quick thoughts on that game. We saw the Jets run all over them. I was saying before you came on, I think Robinson and Gibson should have huge days. What are your thoughts on this game, and how do the Commanders come out with a big dub?
You hit it right on the head, and I tweeted it out a couple of days ago that the Jets showed the blueprint. And we've seen the blueprint. The 49ers have shown the blueprint against Green Bay in the playoffs, because basically Green Bay's a finesse football team, and if you smack them in the mouth, they back down, bottom line. Washington can't turn this into a Taylor Heineke throw the ball 40 times affair. You just can't. They need to slow the game down and smash mouth, make this an old school football game similar to what the Jets did. Defense has been playing well for Washington. It really has. So if you can get pressure on Aaron Rodgers, which I think they're capable of doing, this game is very winnable for them. And, if a win puts you back at 3-4, you gotta get wins now, because everyone else in the division's winning. I know the Cowboys just lost to the Eagles, but they're getting their starting quarterback back, so they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
So you've got to get these wins, and you're at home, which is probably going to be more Green Bay fans in the building, but nevertheless, you're in your comfy confines as far as what as far as how the field plays, things like that. I think that it's a winnable game, but they're going to have to run the ball down Green Bay's throat. And if it's not working early, Scott Turner can't abandon it. He still has to stay with it and just keep doing it. And by the second half of the game, you start to see the results. So run the football, play great defense, and you should win the football game.
That sounds easy enough.
Yeah.
And let's make sure it gets executed.
That's right.
Lake Lewis, we appreciate you joining us. Brian, did you have one more?
No, I was going to say thank you so much. You packed in 3 hours worth of content in 20 minutes, like only a true professional can.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Anthony's my guy, man. It's good to see you guys doing well with this. And anytime you need me back on, just let me know. I'll be there.
All right,
thanks,
man.
Lake. Appreciate it,
Lake. We'll see you.
Take care. All right. Take care.
Y'all, we appreciate y'all tuning into this one. Brian, that was fun.
That was
a fun one. I'm glad we had Lake jump in,
Yeah.
kind of give us a little update on everything. But appreciate the folks at Bet Online. Make sure y'all head on over there. Use our promo code. It's just BLEAV, believe.
Easy.
You're going to get that 100% welcome bonus. Check us out on TuneIn Radio. That's available as well. We get to Believe radio station. Sometimes you can catch us on Stadium. Did you know that?
Yeah.
We made it once.
I know we're in a bunch of different places, which is really cool. You'll be able to see the video all on YouTube and probably some stuff on social. So a bunch of different ways to check us out. Subscribe to the podcast, like it, all that good stuff. But we appreciate you listening in. We appreciate our guys Bet Online. We'll try to do a picks podcast later on. I have fun with that. We'll get a AAA parlay. Thanks so much to Lake Lewis for his insight, and always good stuff talking to that guy. He's a must follow if you don't follow him. So follow him on Twitter and on Instagram. A fun one, and big game this week. Hopefully they can put aside all the craziness off the field and go get it done on the field. Throw Aaron Rodgers around a little bit.
Yes, indeed. Y'all be easy. Stay safe. Y'all have a good one.